Like countries, there's pretty much most countries in the world who are not Russia's allies, you can count them by fingers on one hand, are the unfriendly countries. So therefore, um, property of citizens and companies from their unfriendly companies can be administered. Well, to administer, you should really read to steal. Well, that was kind of expected. Um, with no law, just like that, something happened last months. Recently, two large foreign companies, French manufacturer of dairy products called Danone and Danish multinational brewer called Carlsberg, had their properties administered by Vladimir Putin by his decision with no law, just like that, because he wanted to administer the properties and to give them to his friends, the Chechens, to manage and to benefit. Well, ain't it nice? Danone and Carlsberg were building their businesses in Russia for decades, investing into production, sales, marketing, everything. And one day, a gang comes in and administers their businesses, their properties, everything. So Putin liked administering properties like that. The experiment was successful. Easy money, hey, why not? So he gave an order to create a law allowing him to do it legally. I'd like to tell you an anecdote instead of commenting this whole thing. A powerful president of a large country dies of natural causes. He goes to the skies, up high in the skies, where the white clouds everywhere, and he sees two doors. Large doors with signs on them. One sign reads hell, and another one reads heaven. Well, obviously, that president knocks on the door that reads heaven. St. Peter opens a little window inside the door, and this little square window, and looks at the dead president with a question in his eyes. And the president goes, well, I have finally came to you. I am here. Open the door and let me in. Oh, good to see you, Mr. President. But what makes you so sure that you knocked on the right door? Don't you know who I am? I'm the most powerful and richest man on earth. The ruler of the nukes, the master of special military operations. Kind and merciful, the one and only. Do you know how much money I spent on people, caring for people, on charities, on hospitals, on schools? And those money were mine. Mine, by the way. So, this is where I belong, to heaven. Oh, I see, Mr. President, says St. Peter. Okay, just give me a couple minutes. I don't want any mistakes to be made, so I'll just go and check. He closes that window and leaves for a couple minutes. And then he comes back, opens the window, and says, well,
They made a joke when he's dead.
I have two news for you. A bad one and a good one. And I'll start with a bad one. Mr. President, you knocked on the wrong door. But also, there's a good news for you. We checked how much you spent your own money on hospitals, on charities and things like that, considerable amount. We will refund you everything to the last ruble, all at once, with cash, now. And you can take it with you to the next door. And we are moving on. The next news is Russian medical system. So many hospitals have been built recently. In 2022 alone, the number of medical staff in Russian hospitals and medical clinics, federal medical clinics, decreased by 50,000 doctors and registered nurses. This sign reads,
They all fled, I guess.
there is no accepting patients. All doctors quit. 2023 is turning out to be even worse than 2022. Biggest doctor drain in Russia's history is happening in front of our eyes, in front of everyone's eyes. Do you know how Russian government has been trying to compensate this terrible medical shortage? They try to deter the ones seeking medical help to not seek it. They establish protective electronic receptions with no people, only electronic systems that are often offline due to malfunctions, you know. They install automatic queue machines that are always out of paper and things like that. And this is what they do instead of somehow solving this crisis. But then again, how can you solve it? Because doctors are smart people. They understand what's going on. They're very down to earth. They have common sense and logic, and they see what's going on, and they decide not to be a part of that mad circus, and they leave. If you come to Tashkent, Uzbekistan, you will see plenty of doctors. There's a huge group of Russian doctors practicing here. My son was sick last week, a couple weeks ago, and the doctor who visited him, came to our house, was a doctor from one of the Siberian cities who moved with his family a year ago to live here in Uzbekistan due to obvious reasons, political reasons, okay? There is a large group of doctors here. They get together regularly, they have their own Telegram channel and so forth. And I'm pretty sure that other cities all over the world are absolutely the same. There's plenty of Russian doctors there. The Russians, make sure you don't get sick, because there's no one to help you already. Moving on. Russia and Iran just made a joint declaration stating that any country that causes losses to countries, individuals, or legal entities, companies, by unilateral sanctions is responsible for compensating such losses. I read this news and I didn't understand it at first. I read it again, and let me translate you from English to English. Okay, I'll try to make it simple. According to Russia and Iran, according to their joint statement, Russia is now eligible to demand from European countries all that money Russia did not receive from Europeans for not willing to buy Russian oil. Now, according to Russia and Iran, Russia is eligible to demand to cover the losses, those sales that didn't happen, from European countries and all the countries in the world for whatever sanctions they applied to Russia. So Iran is also eligible.
You're drunk.
Please understand who you are dealing with here. These people are absolutely insane. They just don't even try to hide it somehow. Beware of the Russian and the Iranian government. Just run away from them. Let's move on to the next news. The Russian parliament proposed to revive the Stalinist-era enemy searching and monitoring system with the goal to identify and find traitors of the motherland. People like me. This system is proposed to be established covering entire Russian territory. Who introduced this system? Well, you know his face. He's been a newsmaker. He was a frequent guest here at Inside Russia on this channel. He appears in Russian Crazy Friday news updates here often, regularly, and it is none other than good Russian Senator Gurulev, Andrei Gurulev. Andrei Gurulev was a heavyweight Russian senator, a member of Parliament's Defense Committee. Look at this guy closely. This is how he looks like. Remember this guy. He is the one who wanted to exterminate 29.5 million Russian citizens. That's about 20% of an entire population who disagree with Vladimir Putin and do not support current Russian president. A little more on that later. Just a couple minutes. Well, some people to buy Russian oil. Now, according to Russia and Iran, Russia is eligible to demand to cover the losses who disagree with Vladimir Putin and do not support current Russian president. A little more on that later. Just a couple minutes. Well, some people laughed at me saying, hey, why are you taking this guy seriously? Gurulev is crazy. Don't pay attention to him. Well, he's a Russian senator. He was voted to the Russian parliament. And he is on the Committee of Defense. He is to be taken seriously. And he means business, in that this is the proof right here. He just made one step closer to the start of this exterminating of 29.5 Russian million of Russians. He just proposed the revival of SMERSH, Soviet Counterintelligence Service, which was created and operated during Joseph Stalin's time with the same purpose as Gurulev describes too. It operated to identify and exterminate Russian citizens. Other small towns and those 4 provinces that Russia annexed. So he admitted that SMERSH has already been created and it's been operating in those territories. Well, he is to be taken seriously. Those who are laughing at him and not taking him seriously are very, very wrong. Okay? So he said that SMERSH has already been operating in the occupied regions of Ukraine because, I quote Gurulev, and this is good, people are shitting on us. Forgive me my language, I just quoted Russian senator. Now, going back to the news where Gurulev proposed to exterminate 29.5 million, I'm gonna give you a picture of him during a live speech. You know, he made it in the live television show. Okay, everyone saw that. So another senator made an inquiry asking the Ministry of Police to examine Gurulev's saying about, exterminating 20% of Russians. And, the police, state, federal police, the Ministry of Police, they were to check if he broke any law proposing to murder 29.5 million innocent people. And the investigation and the analysis were completed recently. The Ministry of Police did not find any signs of extremism, in the words of Andrei Gurulev. No laws were broken, according to investigators. At the same time, they imprison for merely regular people, for merely putting a heart under a social media post or liking someone's message. And that says a lot. And the last news in this segment came from Vladimir Putin. After Gurulev's speech on Russian TV about first exterminating 29.5 million people, then about creating SMERSH to monitor, to find, and then, prosecute those who, pardon my language, people who shit on them, on Russian politicians. Vladimir Putin made a speech. He said, I quote, "There should be no more political repressions in Russia."
guys are fucking clowns.
Who do we believe? The Russian president or the Russian senator? None? Remember, there is no such absurdity that could not be realized in Russia. By the way, if you're liking today's news update, please help me spread this message by making reposts in your social media accounts. Thank you very much. And we are moving on to the next thing. Next news. Stealing is not a crime in Russia anymore. But what is a crime is investigating and writing articles in newspapers about stealing. A bill has submitted to the Russian parliament that outlaws investigative journalism. Believe it or not, you know, the good Russian senators of the Russian parliament want to make the activities of investigative journalism to be called criminal offense and equated to participation in an organized criminal group. The authors of the bill propose to assign the most severe punishment, up to 10 years in maximum security prison, along with the fines to up to 3 million rubles. That's roughly $30,000 to members of such organized criminal groups. The term group can be understood as all people who are related to the work on the material and about such investigations and providing information. So really anyone who gave information to a reporter and reporter made it public. Now, such people are members of a criminal organization. I explain in simple language. Reporters who investigate corrupted officials, corruption crimes, get proof of that and write articles or create movies, YouTube videos about such crimes, become criminals themselves. As such investigations in the future in Russia, if this bill will pass, and there's a likelihood of it passing, so it'll be strictly outlawed. Investigative journalism will be strictly outlawed. Folks, I swear it gets better and better. It's okay to steal, but it's a crime to investigate stealing and, corruption and make it public so everyone sees that. Why don't they just make a law that forbids police to investigate corruption crimes? Well, why not? Folks, I know that you are absolutely stunned right now. You're probably having a hard time believing me. I am stunned myself. This isn't even Barbie land anymore. It's friggin' Freddy Krueger's land. I don't know what to say. Let's just move on to the next news. In the last week, I exposed Russian government outlawing LGBTQ plus as a whole, as a movement, as people who belong there. Well, that's pretty insane. My last Friday crazy news update was on that also. But do you really think this is the end for Russia's lawmakers' absurdity? I think it's just the beginning. Who'll be the next? That's the question that at least I am asking. The child-free. Oh yes. All parents who are child-free will be outlawed, and everything that mentions child-free will be outlawed. There will be a ban on dissemination of information promoting and merely discussing the concept of child-free.
Hello, I'm just listening to a Russian guy that fled Russia, and he's reporting about all the crazy shit going on there.
You organize a Telegram group or a little community for child-free parents. well, then you become organizer and receive already from 8 to 15 years. Some will say, oh, this is nonsense. Same as Gurulov stuff. What are you talking about? Gurulov is talking about exterminating 29 million people. Of course, that will not happen. Gurulov was introducing this idea of Smersh. Oh, he's crazy. It's not gonna happen. Who believes him? Don't. And what makes me believe it's not nonsense, okay? There's gotta be something. And yes, there is something. Because the talks about outlawing child free have already started in the Russian parliament. That's it. The good Russian senator Fedorov proposed a legislative initiative to impose a tax on child free. It's called a tax on childlessness. But it always starts. See, the Russian government works in stepping stones. There's tons of small steps, but many of them. And this is the first step. Of course, they first introduce the tax. They introduce public discussions. The next, then they introduce public outrage, and by tiny steps, they achieve their purpose. The good Senator Fedorov said that childlessness tax existed in the USSR, and it is the right time to return this tax to modern-day Russia. Well, the good senator is correct. There was such a tax in the USSR. Any independent adult from age 20 to 45 had to pay 6% of all income to the government if she or he did not have children. Folks, I hate to say that, but did you understand what I just said? Did it sink into you? I'm out of words. I don't know how to comment this thing. They want to return the worst, the darkest that existed in our lives long time ago in the USSR. It was a pretty dark country, but inside that country they were the spots of complete darkness, and this is what they are happy to return back to Russia now. And today's people who live today in today's Russia, who have experience of living back then in the darkness, they're okay with it. What the hell is going on? Let's move on. Well, Peskov is usually the newsmaker, and in every crazy news update, and he is the newsmaker in today's update as well. Again, Peskov commented on his daughters living in Paris. If you didn't know, Peskov's daughter and son, residents and citizens of foreign countries, the UK and France. Well, his daughter lived in Paris for a very long time. Not sure if she still lives there, but, and Peskov sometimes criticized for that. So he just gave his excuses. He said that his daughter lived in Paris poorly, in Spartan conditions. Well, let me show you the Spartan conditions. And let's talk about it. What are the Spartan conditions, according to Peskov? His daughter lived in Paris in 180 square meter, and that's almost 2,000 square feet apartment with a view of the Tower of Eiffel. That apartment was worth 1.8 million euros. That's more than $2 million. That's near poverty. Now, of course, look at this picture. It's clearly it's a disgrace to live like this. Ugh, who lives like this, right? It's poverty. Well, the worst thing is that Peskov most likely is not lying. To him, living in Paris' best apartment, so big it can fit 4 Russian families. because Russian families usually don't have large apartments. So to live in an apartment worth over 2 million US dollars is really near poverty situation, really Spartan conditions. Imagine how
Crazy people in Russia now. Fuck, it's a shit.
so to him $2 million apartment is near poverty. He is most likely a billionaire, and I mean that explains a lot. Of course, if you're a billionaire, probably living in a $2 million pad, I mean it's you know, he's prosecuted his daughter like that. She did something bad. He sent her from Moscow. You know, said you live in poverty. That's just a tiny apartment for you. And he's just a little guy. He's just a press secretary of Russia's president, Vladimir Putin. Imagine how rich his superiors are. Wow. Russians, do you like such poverty? Can you afford to live in these Spartan conditions in Paris? Well, at least in Moscow. Don't forget, all that near poverty came out of your pockets, your own taxpayers' money, the taxes that you paid. And someone took that money and they live near poverty like that in Paris. Let's move on. In the annexed city of Melitopol, the new administration running the city calls Ukrainian last names Ukrainian Nazism, calling on people to destroy and erase their past. Check this out. Now it says there's a picture with a Russian government stamp on it, and it says Galushko, which is Ukrainian last name, and it says to Glushkova. Are you exchanging your passport? Then change, well, those people who live in those regions, they must exchange their passport to get Russian passports. They're forced to do that. Well, if you're changing your passport, change and last name. Let's clear ourselves from the Ukrainian Nazism. If you want to change your last name in official way, quickly and with no queue, please, you know, make an appointment. And the address is given. Now, folks, this is insane, you know. My mother was born in Russia, in the USSR, but she was born with a Ukrainian last name. Her brother still has Ukrainian last name, the same last name he was born with. And then that last name is as Ukrainian as it gets. What this administration is saying is that my mother, her brothers, and her sisters, and her entire family are Ukrainian Nazis. I don't know who said this phrase. Fascists of the future will call themselves anti-fascists. But it's really hard to disagree with that person. Let's move on. I'd call them
It's about right.
Google tremble. Your time is coming. The head of Russia's Committee of Human Rights at the meeting with Vladimir Putin, almighty Russian president, the ruler, His Highness, His Excellency the Tsar, meeting with him proposed to create an organization to monitor the work
Ooh,
of
H-slot bang.
to check on Google, to make sure Russian people don't use Google to access bad things, such as listening to free people speaking freely on YouTube, you know, who reside outside of Russia and make articles, run websites, things like that. You know, gosh, if Russians read and listen to that, they might get ideas. Well, the good bureaucrat proposed to check not only on Google, but on other companies too. high-tech companies. The reason behind that given, well, it's classic. For the sake of user information security. Of course, it's for their own safety and security, for their information security. The Russian government has one goal, to care for Russian people. In this case, they're caring for those bad people from Google. They might do, you never know what. Folks, I've told you before, Russia is going to hell very fast. Let's move on to the next news. China is our next newsmaker. The construction of a new natural gas pipeline from Russia to China called Sila Sibiri 2 and the Power of Siberia 2 is delayed. It's delayed to the disputes between Russia and China, multiple disputes. China is forcing hugely discounted long-term natural gas supply contracts at a very, very, very low price. And it wants Russia to bear all the costs of building this pipeline. Well,
Nice.
does it surprise anyone? Certainly doesn't surprise me. My advice to you, the good Russian folks, don't delay a minute. Do as your Chinese masters order you to do. They will not forget this, your indecisiveness, and they will not forgive you. The Chinese are coming fast, and they have that on record, so you better hurry up. Folks, if at this point you're asking yourself, how can I help this channel? That's easy. The best way is to hit the like button right there. To buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com, or a tea like this one. Or become channel's patron at patreon.com. Either way would be absolutely fantastic and much appreciated. The links are down below. Thank you so very much. And we are moving to the next news. The cost of eggs in Russia. Don't start laughing. This is actually very serious stuff. Very, okay? The cost of eggs in Russia and in the United States is equal now.
But
What's the big deal, you ask? Well, it is a big deal. It is a huge deal, okay? Let's compare minimum wage in Russia and in the US.
oh, right.
In Russia, minimum monthly wage is 13,980 rubles, Russian rubles. Let's suppose that an average person works 160 hours per month, that's 4 weeks, by 40 hours a week. That gives us, for a Russian average hourly wage, that gives us minimum wage. States is above $9 an hour. 94 cents per hour in Russia versus $9 in the USA. Yet, regular eggs, they cost absolutely same, to a penny now. And nearly all food in Russia is costing very close to what it's costing in the United States, or getting there fast, and it'll get there. Do I need to say anything else of Russian people's living standards, current inflation level, current state of Russian economy, and other wonderful things? Next time you hear any economist speaking on how Russian economy is growing now and doing well, remember these two numbers. The minimum wage of 94 cents in Russia, and Russian eggs are costing the same as they cost in the United States. Let's move on.
What's the minimum wage in USA?
Airlines, Mineralные воды, St. Petersburg, that's the flight, performed emergency landing immediately after the takeoff. The plane's cockpit got depressurized. There were 111 passengers on board. The reason? Limited regular maintenance. Perhaps complete lack of regular maintenance. At this point, it's really hard to say. But that's not it. Today, the S7 airline plane heading from Novosibirsk to Moscow, performed an emergency landing in Novosibirsk immediately after takeoff. The plane's both engines caught on fire simultaneously. There were 176 passengers on board. The reason? Limited, regular maintenance of the plane. Well, perhaps complete lack of regular maintenance of the plane. It's really hard to say at this point also. I don't know what you think, but I think this is scary stuff. You know, it makes me scared. In the pre-war years in Russian aviation industry, there were very few accidents every year. You could count them on the fingers of your one hand. Now comes 2022 and the war starts, and you know what's happening to the Russian aviation. In 2022 alone, there were 22 accidents due to decrease in airplane maintenance and limited availability of engineering from planes manufacturers and spare parts. In late 2023, it's gotten so bad that there are multiple accidents in the air happen almost daily. I have 3 questions. First, Russians, aren't you scared to fly these days? Second, Russians, are you happy what's happening in your skies? And third, Russians, please answer me this one question. What's this situation? Is it everything is going according to the plan, or Russian economy is growing and aviation industry is doing well and getting new Russian planes commenced by the dozens? Which is the right statement? Ooh. And the last news of the week, and most likely the biggest news since the Wagner mutiny happened in June 6 months ago, Vladimir Putin announced that he will run for another presidential term. 6 more years for him. Please forgive me for saying he will run. I should have said he will continue. He's decided to continue being a Russian president for at least 6 more years. No, in reality, he's probably thinking of 66 more years, or even 666 more years. Who knows? Dmitry Peskov in July told us publicly that he said, well, it's a done deal. It's already decided. Now it's just we need to do this formality, the elections, and that's it. And then he disappeared for a month. I'm not sure if someone talked to him or whatever happened, but what a coincidence, right? So according to Dmitry Peskov, Putin made a decision. He's already the president for 6 more years. It's just a formality. But anyway, his announcement is important because it outlines the direction Russia is moving to. How many pieces of the puzzles have been identified and put together today? Quite a few. And they kind of show me new information, new direction, okay? His decision clarifies a lot. He was set to announce it later, a few days later. Many, myself included, were expecting him to announce this decision on December 14th, but it doesn't really matter, you know. Doesn't make much of a difference. On Sunday, I will make a stream explaining in details what to expect now. Please come back and watch it. It's going to be very important live stream, okay? But now, I want you to show how Vladimir Putin made this announcement. And it's definitely, this stuff belongs to Russian crazy news, I believe. It's really worth taking a look, so please. The first scene is no sound, but it kind of shows you the beginning. And I would like to pause it and comment. So, this is official footage from TASS, Russian State Information Agency. So, let's look at this again. Now, this guy, somehow everyone is sitting, and you are seeing the who is who in Russian top political circle. Okay, there's Shoigu, there's Volodin, there is the Great Cardinal of Russia sitting right there. I see. There are people from the State Duma. I mean, this is it. You're looking at Putin's people, closest circle. Okay. So this is happening in Kremlin, and it's supposed to be just a regular, whatchamacallin, regular event. Okay, just one of the small events for Vladimir Putin, and then all of a sudden, no one expected him, but he announces here that he will run for the presidency for the next 6 years. And he didn't make this decision by himself. This guy asked him to run. Okay, this is like so Soviet stuff. This is so Putin stuff. It's amazing. They don't invent new things. They keep on repeating themselves over and over. Look what's happening now. I'm gonna be taking a closer look. This guy is already standing. He is ready. He knows his role. Okay, everyone's looking at him. They know his role as well. Everyone stands up. Putin comes in. I want you to notice this. Look how many military people, the generals, the top military personnel. It seems like more than half. Okay, they're highly decorated, 3-4-star generals and all of that, but look how many. Look, he is walking towards Putin, okay, and the Putin bodyguards right there, Putin's bodyguards over there behind the guy, they're cutting everyone off so that people would not also walk to Putin. That's interesting. Right here. You see this, a few people, they know their roles. They know what to say. They know where to go, okay? And look how bodyguards are acting. Booms. They're not letting anyone to approach. Just few selected people approach who know their roles. And everyone knows what's gonna happen. Okay. So we're moving to the next scene, and it has sound.
I'm listening to now. Why isn't it translating?
Well, here, folks, I'd like to pause and tell you, look, this is for the very first time I ever see a Muslim woman participating in such an event. Okay? Never happened before.
Oh,
Because Russia, Russian president, Russian power, власть, силовики had always been about Christianity, about Russian Eastern Orthodox Church. And then, all of a sudden, here we see a woman who's clearly Muslim, covered head, and she is at the very front position, right next to Vladimir Putin. Then we see another woman who looks very Russian, blonde, very typical. And we see another woman, another nationality. So they're all selected and they're orchestrated. The whole thing is orchestrated. This is just funny. Look how many military personnel everywhere. They're dominating the scene. And it kind of a message that is sent to Russian people that this is war, okay? The military, the soldiers, the generals, they start playing a major role. Okay, the war economy is coming. As this lady is saying how she's proud of Vladimir Putin and all of that, and then, she's thanking him for respecting the heroes and things like that.
oh,
Our boys at the front lines, they're doing their duty. What duty? We'll understand, the So there are 5 people, and he's also surrounded by highly decorated soldiers, what it appears to be their officers, and they're heroes of Russia. They have this medals.
Мы сегодня здесь присутствуем, я вот прям горжусь, герои России, герои Советского Союза, кавалеры орденов нашего мужества, герои труда, родители погибших наших героев, мы все здесь.
He asked Putin to please run for 6 more years in the next elections, because Putin is the only person who can save Russia, who can win everything, whatever, who can continue ruling Russia, continue being the high standard of Russia's rulers and so forth,
It's like watching a soap opera in Russia at the moment.
It's really hard to comment this because
Television show. Crazy.
It's so clear that the whole thing is insincere and staged. People know where to go. People know when to move. People know how to say, what to say. It's clear that they are not spontaneous, okay? It's clear that that event had been practiced probably for a week, okay? But then, why would I be expecting sincerity from these people? They're not, exactly in a fair game of politics, of democracy. They have usurped power and they're keeping it, and they're ruling Russia the way they want, okay? They're just putting a face mask on and showing it to, and the audience, the target audience for that show is the Russian people, regular Russian people, who are not very sophisticated, who watch TV, who don't...
Well, I have to go make breakfast soon.
They look at that picture and...
We're also gonna make gingerbread cookies today. Decorate them tomorrow.
Why? They don't understand. It's their lives. It's their government. It's their decision. It's their right. It's their country. It's their land. Most of all, it's their lives. They are to make decisions. They are free to do anything they want to. Instead, they watch this picture, they believe it, they buy it, and they cheer for it. I honestly don't know why. It's very saddening. It's depressing. And it just puts Russia step by step in far and far away from a normal world, okay? From light. It just brings it into the darkness. More and more into the darkness. Well, folks, Vladimir Putin is definitely the newsmaker of the week, of the month, and probably half year. The newsmaker of the year, in my eyes, is Yevgeny Prigozhin still. Because this Putin's decision to run for 6 more years, is not even close to the magnitude of the decision when Yevgeny Prigozhin announced he was moving on to Moscow to dethrone Putin and end that...
Oh, that's a lot of players here.
So, definitely event of the year. But this Putin is very... Putin's decision, announcement of his decision is also very important, because finally we can think of where Russia is moving to, because before it was a crossroad. Anyway, on Sunday, please come back. I will talk more. I have tons of material. I have facts. I have figures. I have my thoughts. And I am ready to share everything with you. This Sunday, day after tomorrow, and tomorrow there's a live stream for sponsors and patrons only. This is my way of thanking you for supporting the channel and being inside Russia patron and sponsor community. Thank you so very much for watching, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, as usual. You're awesome. And now... please, I suggest you go and check out another video I made. The link is right here.
Please,
when
feel
I
free to make
documented
yourself at
how
home.
I was
As
leaving
long as you
Russia
mind your
for good.
business, no one
Right
should have
here,
any problem with
and
you
I'll see
taking
you
up
soon. Carthago delende est.
Yeah, I'm logging off now. See you later.